it's an empty death. It just feels so empty, and it doesn't solve their problems. When did that idea come about? Because I think it's brilliant because it's SpongeBob SquarePants TV show voice. I'm curious about the moment when, after killing him, you flash up a title card that says, 5 years later. Everybody was shocked, and this has ripples throughout the MCU because you have now moved the timeline up to 2023.
Yeah.
Everything it shows a finality again of the snap and people getting dusted.
Yeah.
What was it like coming up with that concept? Because again, you are still making your audience question what's going to happen in the movie, which is a good place to have them in the first act.
Yeah, I mean, it's delightful to be given that kind of leeway, for one thing. Because then you get to, I mean, you say 5 years later, in your head you go, oh, we're telling a real story. You know, this is not, we're going to get out of jail fast. And it is a chance to really see what, you know, this whole movie, all of Endgame is about the effects of the last movie. And to really put these people through something, put failure, you know, dead center in the lives of the superheroes, and to crush them a little bit. Not just for, you know, not just because they got hit a few times in a fight, but because for 5 years they have lived with abject failure.
The first movie was a Thanos movie. People didn't know that going in, but it turns out he was the hero of the movie. And the second one was definitely going to be an Avengers movie, specifically the original 6 Avengers movie. And we knew we were escorting a number of them off the stage in various ways. So we wanted, selfishly, to do as much as we could with them, which meant move them along and do all the stories that we can. And so we talked a lot about that 5-year jump, giving us almost, if you know the What If comics, almost allowing us to do the What If for a number of our heroes.
I love What If.
Yeah. So what happens if this guy becomes depressed, or this person gets married, and this person loses his faith, or what have you? So that's, a lot of these decisions are based on those things that we wanted to do, and you can only do that if you could jump some number of years. And if you jump 20, you gotta your visual effects budget's higher.
Yeah, and your actors are really pissed off.
It was a great move, but interestingly, again, it allowed you to do a revision of something that you have been crafting.
Yeah.
In the sense that Smart Hulk, as he's known, or Professor Hulk, was an idea that actually you had told me that you tried out in Infinity War, in the third act, and finally Bruce Banner and the Hulk could make peace to share the same body together and figure out a way through it. But as you said, it didn't work in the third act of Infinity War because it just stood out like a sore thumb.
And that again is, these movies are worked on up until release. There's no point where people go, no, this is great, just screw it, let's go to Hawaii. We wrote it, we shot it, and then went on to shoot most of Endgame. And it was, he achieved union with the Hulk.
Basically,
while inside the Hulk bus.
That's right, that's how he beat.
Burst out and kicked Paul Obsidian's ass. His space ass. And it didn't work. It was completely the wrong tone for that moment in the movie. It was like this victory when we were headed toward a crushing defeat, and it was tone deaf. But we had already shot Endgame.
Right. So
where he was already Smart Hulk.
Imagine the first act of Endgame, he's Smart Hulk in all of those scenes, meaning when he goes to kill Thanos, meaning when they're sitting around the compound going, when Tony's returned. So that required some adjusting, and it also meant that we could use the 5 years as the transition, right? Like you hint that he's got problems coalescing, and in the 5 years he figures it out. You have a couple of lines about gamma radiation, and he's eating pancakes, and off we go.
Well, it's also like, you get it. I mean, part of the thing we learn every time you write a movie, and particularly a movie where it is on a continuing storyline, is you don't have to explain as much as you think you have to. You can go to Queens, people know who Spider-Man is, I don't need to see him get bitten by a spider again. Like, okay, it's a combination of Hulk and Banner. I get it. Just give me a crumb to hang on to as to how it happened.
Well, and it's great that you did it as a reshoot, which is the purpose of a reshoot, which adds something to it. And the fact that you're always kicking the wheels as writers, it's healthy and it's good, even though it's painful.
Well, part of the challenge and part of the pleasure of this giant task of these two movies is, how do you tell everything you need to tell, weave it together, and keep it light enough so that you're not bogging down all the time? And a big sequence where you see these two guys achieve union takes time and takes attention away from the story. A really funny scene where the Hulk is eating pancakes. It's fast, it's funny, it makes you really happy, and it is a scene I haven't seen in a superhero movie before. Let's accept that challenge and try to push the whole thing forward, try to push the genre forward.
Hear that, right?
In a Secret Wars movie, that we could see like an alt version of a Tony Stark or a Steve Rogers, because anything is sort of possible.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not.
I'll leave you guys be on Secret Wars.
Yeah.
How does it? You guys are about $5 short of breaking Avatar's box office record. How does it feel to be that close?
I mean,
It's shocking, yeah, it's shocking.
Surreal.
Yeah. I mean, look, again, it goes back to the fans, the fact that people have responded to Endgame in this way, been following these characters for so many years now, and these stories for so many years. I mean, I think it's a cathartic experience for all of us to see it get to this point in the storytelling, and you saw that show up in terms of how the movie played globally. So it's a big thrill. James Cameron has always been an idol of ours. He's sort of fed our passion for filmmaking from the beginning, and so to be so close to one of his great films is really special. Yeah.
I'm curious.
Ruffalo does it because he sort of gets kind of lost in his performance, and Mackie does it because he gets lost outside of his performance. Mackie likes to make a lot of jokes on set. So.
Who can always nail it in one?
Scarlett. Yeah. Scarlett can always nail it.
That's why she's Black Widow.
Hardest VFX shot to get right in Infinity War and then in Endgame.
Well, Infinity War, I think, was conceptually, it was the
dusting.
The dusting, yes. I think that took a while to understand what it would look like, and I think we went through a really iterative process of trying to figure out visually how to represent that in a way that felt satisfying and fulfill the idea that they were disapparating and not just falling dead. That the essence of who they were was being absorbed into the universe. Endgame.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I think it probably was one of the shots you just saw, right? Was it the portals took quite a long time.
Yeah.
That sequence itself it was one of the last things I think we delivered.
Yeah, that was difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause it was reliant. A lot of it was reliant on the score and pacing, rhythm.
Smart Hulk was also quite difficult early in the process.
That's right. He was one of the
we worked on that. A long time before we started shooting, we were developing the process of how did we combine Mark Ruffalo, as Banner and the Hulk, and sort of make it find the sweet. I mean, really, all these visual effects, whether you're talking about it in terms of what happened after Thanos snaps, or what Smart Hulk is, it's really kind of trying to find a balance between what looks interesting and cool and sort of emotionally resonant and not silly. It's because you're dealing with something so fantastical. It's really hard to massage it to the point where it feels real and relatable, as opposed to sort of just something that's like just too sort of strange to accept in a moment of disbelief.
What day do you wish you could relive in filming on Infinity War and Endgame?
Relive.
An Endgame? Well, Endgame is easier.
It's got to be
Yeah.
Robert's last day of shooting on Endgame, which happened to be the "I am Iron Man" line. But by the way, has anyone not seen the movie? Because I don't want to be giving out spoilers. If you haven't seen it, you should leave now. The I am Iron Man moment. I think it was very emotional because it was not only such a poetic line for Robert to have as his last line, but it was his last day, and it was on the soundstage that was next door to the soundstage where he did his first screen test for Iron Man 12 years earlier. So it was a very...
Couldn't have been more full circle.
Yeah, it was a very emotional day for everyone.
Yeah.
Well,
That,
Endgame?
yeah. Or Infinity War.
Infinity War, what do you think?
Relive. Maybe, I guess the first day of shooting was really interesting on Infinity War because we were dealing with, that was the first day where we had the Guardians. We were shooting on Titan, and it was the scene where Tony is trying to get everybody on the same page, but he's having trouble wrangling the Guardians. Peter Parker's there, and it was an interesting day because that was the challenge of these two movies, was combining all these different franchises in a way and on a scale that had never been done before. So for our very first day to have to mix Tony Stark with Peter Parker with the Guardians, that was a very potent cocktail to begin the evening with, so to speak.
It's an age of anyone who's played the character, and he's just incredibly gifted and somebody that we want to work with on almost all of our projects moving forward.
I'm just curious, is it going to be, because it's such an adult subject matter, is it going to be PG-13? Is it going to be rated R? Do you know?
It will be rated R. It's a very complicated movie. It's a very mature movie, and I think it doesn't have the sort of surface level sort of entertainment value that the Marvel movies have, of course. But there are really important stories that need to be told, and Joe and I are in a position now where we can get those movies made, and we want to use that sort of capital that we've built up to tell important stories.
Speaking, you guys have a production company called AGBO. I think there's you might be able to get a logo up there.
Evans, when we were working on Winter Soldier, you guys saw that clip earlier. He did a lot of that fighting himself. He trained for months to do it. It's really important to us when we do fighting sequences that we have the actors do it, because it adds a visceral quality to it, a level of realism. And he used to go home beat up every night, bumps and bruises everywhere. So kudos to him for putting that effort into playing this part for you guys.
Similarly with Chris Hemsworth, in order to play the larger, heavier Thor, he had to wear a really substantial bodysuit that was, quite heavy, and so he had to, and also had to fight in that suit. So those fight sequences are difficult enough on the actors. To sort of put them in sort of difficult costumes can compound things. And Hemsworth did actually end up hurting his back quite badly, unfortunately, but it's healed. But we had to postpone a lot of his shooting as a result of that injury. But thank goodness he came back from it, and we finally shot him out.
Finished his character, yeah.
I'm just going to say, I really do hope Secret Wars happens.
We know.
'Cause I would really love to see you guys, and I think everyone here would love to see you guys return to the Marvel Universe. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, the directors of Avengers Endgame, Joe and Anthony Russo, and as we step up and leave, we're premiering a bonus trailer for the home video release of a certain movie that you might have heard of.